your St. Louis University Law School is relocating this semester to downtown, bringing 2,000 students with it?
Ish. I don't know the exact numbers. I've heard anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000. A lot of part-timers.
Okay, take that topic and go.
I'm really excited about it. I know there's a lot of other students who are too. As soon as they announced it a while ago, 2 years ago, I remember sitting in con law all the way in the back of the class, and the professor's up front, and he's teaching really heady, difficult stuff to us. Every computer in the entire place was trolling through Craigslist trying to find apartments downtown. As soon as we got the email, everyone was ready to go downtown. Everyone was ready to drink there, to eat there, to go to school there, and to live there. Everyone was excited for it.
I'm sorry, you say you do drink in law school. Is that what you just said?
Maybe once, every now and then, when I'm not in the library.
Are you going to stay there, though? Or is this just a stopover, and is that good enough? And I pose it, and I don't want to make this a one-on-one with Joe, but do you think they'll stay? Does it matter?
I think what Joe just said is exactly what downtown needs, and what we're seeing is that long-term investment. We're seeing them dump millions of dollars in this building. They're going to be there long-term. We're seeing the arts grounds be redeveloped, $500+ million. That's showing investment in downtown. What that means is someone who's now, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought of ever living downtown. Now I'm looking for property. I want to stay there long-term myself because I see these investment from governments and from private entities.
I think it's kind of like for that we have to be discussing. I think some people also on Twitter brought some interesting issues. I always hate bringing this up, but I mean, the equality issue. I mean, we're talking about development, we're talking about all these things, but you do have to, let's be honest, I mean, St. Louis's history in terms of the race relations and economic inequality, I mean, those things are, you scratch below the surface, and that is a lot why at the end of the day you could throw $100 million into historic preservation, beautiful buildings, parks, green space, and if you still have issues with separation, jobs, crime, and I hate bringing this topic always coming back to it, but I do think it lives right there beneath the surface. I mean, it really does.
Well, it crossed my mind when in Jim's package early in the show in the 1960s, and it was just like this utopia of downtown. Well, not really. I mean, not everybody came downtown, if you will, and they didn't go to the same places.
I think that's why it's important to remember that downtown is a neighborhood. And I'm glad that the conversation wasn't simply about just development or just the negatives, but it's a dynamic, changing neighborhood, which means people move in and out. There's demographic differences, and some of the things that need to be addressed are just neighborhood issues. It comes down to do residents feel they have a voice? Do they feel connected to the people that represent them in government? Do they feel like they know their policemen and the folks who are working there? So it's a lot of the same issues that any other city neighborhood deals with. The more that people feel connected and they feel like they have a meaning and a purpose in a place, the more that they invest in, the more that they want to live there, the more that they want to, look out for things like crime and other issues. So I think that reminding ourselves that it's a neighborhood and that there is multiple facets of how we can improve it. It's not just about development, it's also about the individuals and the people and what can we do on an individual level and a neighborhood level to make downtown a better place.
I think one thing on the development side, what some of the developers have taken notice of is there are low-income housing tax credits. I actually live in a mixed income building where there are subsidized rents, so it's affordable for people with lower incomes. I pay a market rate rent. So we have blue collar and we have white collar people living in the same building. We have retirees and we have young professionals and we have people going to college. So that little building that I live in is actually a tiny community that everyone's used to with someone who's retired, someone who's working their way through school. And we're seeing developers take advantage of that. There are about 4 or 5 buildings I can think off the top of my head that have this incentive for people looking for places to live downtown.
But is there more riding on the success of this particular neighborhood for the rest of the region? You say it's a neighborhood, but it's not like it's in its own little bubble.
No, the success of downtown is tremendously important for the whole region, for St. Louis County and for St. Louis City and for East St. Louis too. We get stuck in this idea that it's a zero-sum game, that the success for the city means a failure for the county or vice versa. It's not like that. Success for one of us means growth for the entire region because companies moving into downtown, not everybody wants to live downtown. Not everybody wants to live in the city. Sometimes they want the county, and that means residents in the county too, or vice versa. Maybe somebody's got a job in the county and they really like city living. It can be success for all of us. We have to stop believing that success for one means failure for the other.
Well, it's important to remember that the downtown for most cities is still the heartbeat of the city. And the first sign of life that people look towards is the health of the downtown area. And a good example would be in Detroit, where there's a lot of wealth and a lot of business in the suburbs of Detroit, but people tend to think about the health of the downtown area as being sort of the canary in the coal mine or the linchpin that determines the success of the entire region. And I think downtowns are like that because they're concentrations of business or concentrations of culture. And so people think of them as being the showcase of the region. And I think it's important that everyone feel that sense of ownership and understand why it's important that we embrace the changes that happen in downtown, why we look to what's happening and be invested in what happens in downtown, whether it's the Arch Grounds redevelopment or it's art and entertainment or the SLU Law movement. Those kind of things are important to all of us because at the end of the day, it's sort of our face front. It's our marketing that we put out to the rest of the country that says, look what St. Louis is doing, look at the energy that St. Louis is doing. You know, why is it important that these startups are in downtown St. Louis? Because it communicates to the rest of the country that St. Louis is moving forward, that we're moving past some of our challenges and we're looking towards the future. And that's not to say that we don't address, issues. There are a lot of problems to address, but all communities have problems that they have to address. And I think it's important that we sort of realize that the idea of be yourself that the mayor from Cincinnati said is, I think, hugely important because that's really, I think, how that we can embrace St. Louis and especially in the downtown area.
Yeah, and you said someone even on Twitter was saying, don't underestimate the power of marketing. And so, yeah, I think if you put forth an idea, but at the same time, we have a lot to battle against because, my goodness, it's like how many times nationally is it like St. Louis crime, safety? Everyone's, that's kind of the comment still coming up. So it's hard to talk about one issue again without really realistically like addressing other problems. I mean, and being because it's like we have a beautiful downtown. I love our architecture. I tell people all the time, and huge fan of Michael Allen. Shout out, just love the history of St. Louis, learning about it, sharing it with other people. But you cannot tell other people in this entire region how great it is when all they hear is crime and shootings and someone was robbed and cannot convince them of it. So I do think we have to, in this topic, discuss those issues too.
We can be the butt of a joke for the nation for whatever top 10 worst of list that somebody comes out with. The people who really are going to listen to some of those things, like that we're one of the top 10 most sinful cities in America or something like that, if they're really swayed by that.
The top 10 sinful cities, but crime people are swayed by.
Sure, but then they should also do a little more digging and know that our crime stats are wildly, they're not.
That's the issue of perception. I mean, think about how Times Square used to be perceived and the changes that happened. A lot of that was perception over time. That's why leadership and things like that are so important because you need people coming out there and saying, we're going to put this forward. We're going to put this sort of confidence and hope forward and really push that line because over time, that's how perception changes. That's how culture changes. It's not just about, reality isn't the only part of the key. Perception is an important part of changing the reality.